all that to say, if you got questions, we'll be happy to answer them. 505-338-5790. We have Eric on the line. Eric, welcome to Rawtalk. What do you have to say, Eric?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment about the whole sex before marriage and all that. You know, in all honesty, I've been guilty of it. And in my heart, you know, I knew it was wrong. And, you know, it just, the passion of that just took over, and, you know, it took the best of me. And then now that I'm with my girlfriend and I've converted my life to Christ and everything, you know, we've gone the right way. And it's been hard because, you know, I've had that in my past and it's still there and it haunts me. But, you know, now I know that once we do get married, it's going to be blessed by God, you know. And every moment that we share, you know, together in a sexual way is going to be beautiful in God's eyes, you know. And the fact that I did that beforehand, it was never blessed by God. And it caused many, many problems in my life and the life of the person that I was with. You know, I mean, it can be a beautiful thing, but when it's done wrong, it can be a horrible thing. That is many, many problems in your life.
That is so true, Eric, and I thank you for being brave enough to share that, because that's one thing that we don't hear enough of. All we hear is, hey, everybody's doing it. What you don't hear is all the devastation that results afterwards. And in fact, you just don't see the pain. You hear, oh, so-and-so broke up, and, you know, we see all these broken relationships, but everyone treats it like it's not a big deal. You know what? Deep down, I'm willing to bet those people are hurting, regardless of whether they admit it or not. So thank you for sharing that tonight, Eric.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No problem. 505-338-5790 if you'd like to contribute to tonight's conversation, or if you have a question that you'd like to ask, please do so. 505-338-5790 as we talk about why sex is good according to God's plan. And just going back to that idea of sex being fun, how often do you hear that being talked about to youth, Jason? I mean, it doesn't seem to come up a whole lot.
Well, I can tell you in the past 13 months, sex has been talked in Vertical twice as a topic. Like that is the name of the sermon, whatever you want to call it. Kevin Miller did it one time and I did it one time, and we both started off almost the exact same way. Sex is awesome when it's in marriage, but that's about it. We don't really... You know, it's almost like we're trying to, I don't know, want to give them like, oh, this is all the bad stuff that can happen. You know what I mean? And when you came to me and said, hey, I really want to do this positive swing on, I thought, hey, that's really good. And in fact, this last time, I taught on sex, all the bad side about it. Premarital sex and all of that. The next week, Nate Heitzig actually taught on relationships and love. Which I thought was kind of a good combo, because it's like the world really draws two comparisons on that. And I think when we address it with the youth, we talk about sex. When in fact, I read today that most Christians, when they have premarital sex, it's not because maybe they feel, you know, so tempted by it, but it's because of the love that they have for that other person. And they end up saying, well, I love this person, and, you know, we're courting or something like that. Why don't we go ahead and do it? And even though when they may get married later on, they've kind of ruined that, and they not kind of ruined it, they have ruined it. They've gone out of God's plan for that. So it's one of the things that I know that I've just kind of looked at in the past few weeks and really turned around and said, hey, maybe we shouldn't be necessarily, you know, calling them out and saying, hey, this is it. Now, there is a time and a place, but at the same time, I think there should be that flip of the coin and saying, look, it's so incredibly great. And again, it's one of those things we don't stress, because it's a hard stage. It really is, because you have people, you have parents, and even kids. They get really offended when you talk about that stuff in church. They want to hear about, you know, Jesus feeding 5,000 and holding kids and all that, which is, again, it's a time and a place. But I definitely think it needs to be addressed in a positive manner.
You know, the first time I heard about sex being wonderful and great and how much fun it was at a marriage conference.
I was going to say that's
after I was married. And to be honest, I would have liked to have heard more of that before I got married, because I would have liked to have some reason to wait. And I didn't have premarital sex, but I can honestly say I was not pure beforehand. Yeah. And I don't see any difference. You know, some people say, oh, well, if you didn't have premarital sex, then you're gold. No, I sinned. Same as anyone who had premarital sex. I sinned, and there were consequences for that sin. And like you, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But I was bummed when I went to a marriage conference, and that was the first time, hey, guess what? Sex is good. Oh, well, sure, now you tell me. Now that I'm already married, you could have told me that before. Yeah. It probably would have made things easier. I mean, Levi, what do you think when it comes to the idea of you wait until people are married to tell them that sex is wonderful?
I think that that's a bummer. I mean, when the only time the church talks about these issues is the thunder from Mount Sinai, thou shalt not. We're misrepresenting God, quite frankly. I mean, because surely that's a part of it. The prohibitive commandments are important. I mean, but of course, if all the world ever hears or the church ever hears is how not to do, it's like, okay, that's all and well, but what exactly do I do? And I mean, I'm probably an exception as a pastor in that. I feel called by God to speak about sex and to do it bluntly and regularly. I mean, having founded the O2 experience and, going around the nation speaking about sex to young people in Albuquerque, we've had in Orange County, we'll be having one this summer again, the next year in Southern California, and then Montana again. But in my own church, I make sure to do it as well. And right now, on Sunday mornings, we're going through the book, The Song of Solomon, a book that J. Vernon McGee called the most neglected book in the Bible. And when I announced I was going to do it, we've called our series Sex in the Scriptures, because this summer Sex in the City came out. It grossed $60 million in one weekend, and it's the most popular romantic comedy of all time. The world's talking about it. Why should the church be afraid to? Mm-hmm. And when I announced my series, I had a well-intentioned friend who's a pastor say, I don't know about that on a weekend. Maybe you could do that for your Wednesday night Bible study, but I'm not sure about prime time. And I said, are you kidding me? The people who are coming to midweek, chances are they're deep enough where they understand these things. It's the majority that are coming on Sundays that need to hear this stuff, Mm-hmm. And since we've done it, we did a whole week on purity. We did a week on attraction, who to be attracted to. This Sunday was a Sunday on dating. Next week will be on being engaged. And then the week after that, they'll get married. And then there's an entire Sunday just on them having sex, because in Song of Solomon, the Bible doesn't blush away from how wonderful sex is in marriage. And God is stoked on it, and it's rad. And Proverbs talks about, a man can be satisfied by his wife's breasts at all time. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's epic in the right parameters. So, I think that we need to not shy away from talking about these things and letting people know they have something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's be honest here. With the church focusing a lot on the negative, trying to combat what the world is presenting, making it look like so much fun, consequence-free, guilt-free, it's just a biological urge, doesn't really matter. And obviously the church needs to make a stand against that. Absolutely we should, and warn people about the dangers, because it is dangerous. But perhaps the way that we have approached it isn't working, because, look at the divorce rate in the church. There's just as many affairs in the church as there are in the world. Or look at the rate of teen sex among Christian kids. Jason or Levi, I'm sure you can address that. It's not that significantly different from that. There is a difference, which is good, but it's not as significant as some people might think. So obviously the approach, or maybe I'm wrong here, one of you guys can correct me, obviously our approach isn't working as well as it should. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. The last teaching I did a lot of the consequences, and I looked up, 1 out of 4 women in this, or teenage girls in this country has an STD, and I went through all of that, and I actually had a student write in and tell me, I didn't really like it. I felt that I walked away, that you were telling us that's what we were going to do. We didn't have a choice. And I felt bad after that, that I made them sound like, oh, this is what it is. But the truth is the truth, and really things just don't lie. And I really have drawn a line in the sand almost, to where there's statistics out there that say 9 out of every 10 people that I have in Vertical right now, when they go to college after their freshman year, will not come back to the church for 8 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. They will leave the church. That's 90% of them. At the same time, 8 out of 10 people at the end of their freshman year in college have had sex. I think those go hand in hand, because I know the guilt and the pressure that you feel from after you have sex and not the way it's supposed to be. Even if you're not a Christian, you feel that guilt upon your life, and I feel that guilt is driving them away from the church. Not the way that should be. It should be they should be coming to the church to get rid of that, but they feel so dirty. And so, yeah, has our approach worked? No. Song of Solomon. In fact, Levi's talking about that. I read that an hour before I came on this.
Really?
And I was blown away because I've read it before, but I was kind of reading the context of what we're doing here, how great it was, and I really looked at that, and I just had my 5-year anniversary with my wife, and I said, that man totally